here. We have Adam Falk with us. Where's Adam? Right there, president of the Sloan Foundation. I want to thank him for that. So we get to do this wonderful award. We have our partnership program. We have over 80 nonprofits that we provide all the back office support to. And we are also the largest nonprofit lender, and we're really proud of that too, led by Andrew Walden, who's in the back, who's doubling as a photographer for us, right? And so when we think about the different initiatives that are here, the Sloan Public Service Awards is actually, it embodies a symbol of what it means for talent and commitment to be at its best, right? And so when I come to DYCD, it's like coming home. Como nuestra familia, right? There's a piece of it, right? I do have a connection to DYCD. And I will say this, that this is an agency that is so blessed that they're able to do all the good news, that they're able to know that every time they give a contract, that they are supporting what it means to transform communities. And I thank you all for that. Because Darryl Rattrays are only successful when they're in a context that's surrounded of support, right? We know we recognize individuals in organizations and in agencies, but the truth is we're also recognizing the agency and what allows the support and talent to flourish, because that doesn't happen everywhere, right? I also want to end by saying this. Darryl, as someone else, was born and bred in New York. I've also been raised by the nonprofits in this city. And I could not be here without that, from public education all the way through. And so I'm excited that we get to have people speak to you and your story. And I'm also excited to just be welcomed here. I am going to end with this. I want to congratulate Commissioner Bill Chung on his second to last day. And I say this because he has left a legacy of service and other leaders who have benefited from his leadership behind. And Bill, I have no doubt you don't know what retirement's going to be for you. But I hope you enjoy yourself and you get to reflect on all the great contributions you've made as well too. So thank you. And thank you for being such a champion of Darryl as well too. Thank you. When we look at the Sloan Award recipients, we select a chair who embodies what we call the values of this organization. And so the chair is Georgia Booth. Georgia Booth, chair of the Aldrin and I have the honor of not having a vote or a say. We have a distinguished panel that does that. And we're really proud of that because it's important to have that separation. And so if any of you know Georgia, you know the commitment she has made, right? She's right now at Children's Aid. She leads their Children's Welfare Division. I will tell you this, every one of the young people who've been through the foster care system that are under Children's Aid, she makes sure they get everything that they deserve. And I thank her for that, and we couldn't think of a better chair for this panel. So I thank you. And we do have a few other distinguished folks who are here that I want to recognize. We have Dr. Esther Fuchs right here. Wonderful. We have Michael Arad, the chair of the Fund for the City of New York. Honoree Rice, how could I not recognize you and all the incredible work you've done in this city? Wonderful to have you too. Eddie, wonderful to have you as well. And I will close out by offering this microphone and a chance for our wonderful distinguished guest to be here, which is our deputy mayor, Sheena Wright, to offer a few words, someone who also represents a commitment to nonprofits in this city. For us who are here, we know what it means to have a voice representing us, and we're honored to have that. I'm looking forward to having you say some words. Thank you.
COVID protocol.
Yes.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much, Lizette. Thank you so much for your leadership. You just have been an inspiration, and it does feel like a homecoming, just the love that's in this room with all of the partners, Esther, Arva. I mean, it is definitely family. And when I heard about this event today from Bill, I said, I've got to be there. I've got to be there. And I wanted to be in this space in day 57 on the job. I don't know what day it is. Because it has struck me, and this is my first foray into government, it has struck me how absolutely incredible the people are who work for the city of New York every single day. And what Sloan and what the fund does to lift up and celebrate and appreciate those individuals is wonderful, and I just wanted to be a part of it. And I have to say, out of 330,000 people, for the 6 people in Darrell to be among that number, in that number is incredible. So I really wanted to be a part of it. And in addition to just participating and celebrating and being grateful for all the people that put this together, I did want to say a few words about Darrell, who I'm getting to know. I am very privileged to have DYCD as part of my portfolio as the Deputy Mayor of Strategic Initiatives. And it is a powerhouse, and it is and will be a powerhouse agency in really realizing the vision of Mayor Adams. So much of what you do, and really, right, Bill, comprehensive community development, engagement, youth development, right, is so critically important to moving our city forward. And so I'm very proud and pleased to be associated with this agency. And Darrell, just hearing your story, I got to really sit down one-on-one even before I knew about the big award, because I wanted to get to know some of the key leadership, your lived experience with your passion and your skill is just incredible and unstoppable. And so congratulations. The last thing I want to say is also add my deep appreciation to Bill for your leadership.
Yes.
I've had such a pleasure in spending time over these, and he is to be celebrated, and looking forward to continuing to celebrate him in the coming days. And, as you said, he's not retiring.
No.
I'm already on board for the next leg of his journey, which is really in uplifting the AAPI community. I'm so excited about the work that he will do going forward, and I personally vow to partner with you on that journey. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your vision. Thank you for your work, and looking forward to the next steps for you as well. The last thing I'll say is, as you're traveling around to the different agencies that are doing such wonderful work, it is very clear to me, ain't no party like a DYCD Thank you so much.
And the DYCD party don't stop. So this brochure that you all have is a great resource. Listed in this brochure are the previous 302 Sloan Public Service Award winners dating back to 1973. The real who's who. There's also a page that tells you who the selection panel members are, and then you also get a sense through the different QR codes of videos and different information on each candidate, on each finalist, if you will. Next, we're going to bring up Commissioner Bill Chung, who will then introduce the following two speakers that will be speaking on behalf of the YCD. Commissioner Bill Chung.
Deputy Mayor Wright, Lizette, thank you for those kind remarks. You know, I'm at a point in life which I never thought I would get to. So people ask me what retirement will be like, and I say it's like starting a new job. Except you're getting paid for what you did, not for what you do. And I feel a sense of both excitement and uncertainty, like any new job. Like when I first started in 1987 working for Governor Mario Cuomo, that excitement and that uncertainty. So in 2003, when I started my first tour of duty at DYCD as an assistant commissioner for capacity building, one of the first people I met was Darrell. And I could tell right away, as he was sitting in his cubicle, that he was a diamond in the rough. You know, and so his journey through DYCD and up the ranks of leadership has reflected the journey that DYCD has gone through the last 18 years. And so, I'm not gonna tell a story about all the big things he's accomplished. That's in the book, you know, people know about that. I wanna talk about the small things he's done, because that says a lot about his character and why he deserves a Sloan Award. In 2004, you know, end of the day, our offices were at 156 William Street, and our conference room was actually on the second floor. It was the Julius Kellogg room, this is the Julius Kellogg room that we've transported to Lafayette. And it was the end of the day, 5, 6 o'clock at night, and I'm walking by and I see Daryl in jeans and t-shirt with Dan Simon. And there were boxes and boxes of debit cards in and if you see behind the curtains, there's boxes and boxes of, I think, surgical masks. So it's kind of like coming full circle. And so I stopped, you know, because I'm nosy, and I said, "What are you guys doing?" And so there were 60,000 debit cards. This is the first year we were launching debit cards. We got rid of the paper checks, and there was a glitch, as there's always a glitch in everything we do. They hadn't done the lottery, so they couldn't develop the debit cards for the people who were picked in the lottery. They had to print debit cards for all 60,000 applicants. The problem was they had to match the debit card with the nonprofit that had signed them up. So Daryl and Dan spent days and nights reading names on a list and matching them, the debit card, with the nonprofit that was, in case their name got picked out in the lottery. And the thing is, he wasn't working in the Summer Youth Employment Program at the time. He was working in the Beacon Program. But he rolled up his sleeves, got the little things that nobody gives you credit for done. I will say that speaks volumes about his character as a public servant. I will say one last thing about the big thing, which, you know, I wasn't really originally planning on talking about. As many of you know, he was the brainchild behind the Step It Up Awards 10 years ago, 11, 12, whatever.
Probably 11 years, but I'm one of the team that was.
And so, well, there's a story about how we got Nike to fund this, but you know, he pursued them. But in all my years at DYCD, I never thought we would be mentioned in Variety. We were mentioned in Variety this week because the Step It Up Award, a Step It Up Award initiative in 2021, the theme was Black Lives Matter, was actually selected to get a gold award, and the first time DYC has ever been mentioned in Variety. Maybe not the last time. This is Daryl's moment, and you know, I can say that the leadership of DYC is in good hands because people like Daryl reflect the very best that this agency has to offer. Thank you. And I think Susan Hassel is going to be speaking.
Daryl, you make me better at my job, and I know I'm not the only person in this room that feels that way. You bring your whole self to the job. You've got your life experiences, your creativity, your intelligence, your commitment, and you do the best in your service because you listen to people with full of compassion. You could be talking to a parent in one of our programs who's disappointed in the service that they got. You could be calming a CBO who's having a really hard time with the challenges we put upon them. Or you could be leading a community meeting talking about gun violence or applauding some of DYCD's new resources. You really bring compassion and let people be heard. You have probably impacted hundreds of thousands of people. When you think about 200 CBOs, 1,200 programs, year after year after year, hundreds of thousands of people have benefited from your good service. And you also coach and give guidance to us.
So many at USCG see you as a mentor, and then we provide better service because of your influence. So I am so proud for your partnership, I'm so grateful for your partnership, and I just wanna say thank you and congratulations. And I think we have one more speaker. Eddie Severio from Catholic Charities, please come up.
Then Sarah Darrow, aka El Primo. Right, so, I mean, for me, when I got called, I was like, damn, I have a lot to say. I mean, I really, and I'm blessed to know Darrow and his team. Team Darrow. When you decide to give it to a team, that's the team. When you have something that is needed to get done in our city, these are people to call. So you can't get Darrow, and I call Darrow a lot, but if you can't get Darrow, you can get Wanda, you can get the team. So I just wanted to say that. But do I go back to Darrow's 90s? The one thing that's missing, we should have background music. We should have Sade. Darrow is the president or something, one of those fine clubs. No, all jokes aside, I met this young man at 156 Williams, and I met him at the fund before that, but let's keep it real, right? Met him at the fund. But when I came here to DYCD, it was the first time the computers, we were gonna do the beacon, and I see this brother, I'm like, what are you doing here? He goes, yeah, this is what I'm learning in school. And Darryl always has questions about the beacon, the community, and he continues to do that today. And when I say that, because for me, that I had to say because it's what Bill said, that little things get done because Darryl makes sure they get done. And that's so important because sometimes, I know you're talking about the water, sometimes we forget, how do we get those PPE masks? How do we get the Metro cards, the new incentives? You know, so for me, so you gotta know that Darryl. Someone that always wants to know, always wants to give back, always wants to listen to figure out how we can do things better. And that's the work of a city employee, right? Because you guys, you fund us, you guide us, you said the word mentoring, you mentor us. And I want to say that Darryl became the mentee that became the mentor. Darryl is that leader, is that student that now is the teacher, who's now the principal. And this is important because I go fast forward and I want to mention, Bill, you mentioned my thing, Step It Up. No, I'm joking, I have like 5 Darryl stories, but Step It Up was so important because we were on Broadway. And you got kids from Brooklyn, Washington Heights, Harlem, stepping it up, what's up? With this pride. And we're there competing, we forget that we're there competing. So, you know, the entities are up. I see Darryl go through the thing, goes to the back, and I see him talking to the officers. And I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, nah, they got a little answer with our young men and women. That's the work.
Yes.
Where everybody's enjoying the show, Darryl's making sure young people are safe.
That's right.
Guys, the vision that you gotta have that radar, right? You have to. So Darryl brings that to the table. So when I talk about the USA basketball team is going, I forgot what year, Darryl, because we are old in this game. And Radio City Music Hall, Darryl jumps on the bus, says, Primo, you got all your sneakers? So Nike hooked up. We took, how many, like 5,000 young people citywide to meet the USA Dream Team. Guys, this brother was up at 5:30 in the morning making sure sneakers were on the buses. When you talk about that, and that's what's key. So for me, Primo is someone that young people don't know, but they know. He's the person that's making sure that these things are happening for them. And when he shows up, and I'm gonna fast forward to 2 weeks ago, he shows up, we had an event for Detective Rivera, who was a YMI kid, which was one of those young people that Darryl took to museum for the first time, and they slept under the big whale. Can I tell you, I'm a grown man. When I see that, and for Darryl to give that to inner city kids, like, folks, this is, I mean, anything that's happened for young people in the last 20 years, Darryl Rattray has been involved. And that you have to understand. Look, I didn't know that SYP thing. I'm gonna make fun of Danny now, but I didn't, but that's real though. But so Darryl's there. Darryl shows up and he's hanging on the back with the staff, with NYCHA residents, with the community, and that's what this is about. Walked with us to when we did the procession with the family, stood and hanged out with the young men because they didn't want to go home. And they're hearing and they're seeing, hey, that's the guy that used to come when we did the burgers outside. Because I will show up at 11 o'clock, make sure my corner shows up. I said, brother, wait here. He's like, yeah, Eddie, I'm on my way home. I'm like, all right, whatever. But can I tell you, those young men, 10 years later, recognize Darryl. They're like, oh, that's the guy, that's your boy. Yeah, he's like, call him Primo, everybody knows that. But for me, that's what's important, that you have a face that's out there when it comes to youth services in the city, and it's Darryl Rattray. And I want to say to the mayor, if we ever have to do a commercial, that was your DYC commercial. And I'm saying that like, because we're promoting PPE, we're promoting COVID, we're promoting education, but we're looking at SYP summarizing, beacons being open, cornerstones being open, and that's the face of it, that's the team. So again, you gotta dream, because that's what Darryl's allowed for our young people. I have to roll it because, like I said, I have thousands of stories of that, pero primo, de verdad de corazón. Thank you for being you. And thank you for always picking up the call. Bless
you. Eddie Silveria is doing casting now. I know Deputy Mayor seen the right and thinks she's going to get casting advice. 2022. February 22, 2022. Little did we know, right, that we may or may not have been in a place, right, where government may not be as valued as much as it should be. Public servants are not uplifted and held as the highest esteem as they should be. We've endured a series of years where public service, government accountability, transparency, competence, delivery has been under assault. So, because the great work that city employees do every day, day in and day out, does not get as much notice as it should, we make sure that the New York Times covers it today. So it has all the alphabet soup there: DYCD, OMB, HPD, HAC, HPD, also the Daily News. So for the next segment of the presentation of the award, we have someone who's the president of the New York Urban League and is also a Sloan selection panel member, Harvard Rice.
Good afternoon, everyone. In the words of our dear Mayor Dinkins, we have now reached the point in the program where everything has been said, but everything has been said. This morning, I am so pleased to be part of the celebration of the extraordinary years of service of Darryl Rattray. I have known Darryl since he was a counselor at Phipps Beacon and watched him grow in service and in impact. From being a computer kid to systems analyst to creator of systems to support youth. I am so proud to be part of this extraordinary day. This year I was asked to serve on the Sloan Public Service Award panel for the very first time. I had worked at the Fund for the City of New York in the 1990s and was familiar with this prestigious award. And I can't tell you how excited I was to receive the packet of nominees and see that Daryl was in the finalist. Prior to selection day, I figured out a strategy. I would let the conversation play out. And if I did not think it was going exactly the way that I wanted, I was gonna drop in a little Daryl fact, a little story, a little snippet, to tip it in his favor. But the fact is, I never spoke a word. The panelists read his story and they understood that he was the very epitome of a Sloan Public Service Award honoree. He had given so many years of service. His work had changed the way that the city of New York does business. And as we heard from Eddie, had an impact on thousands and thousands of young people. So the vote for him was unanimous. In this video that you're about to see, you're gonna hear Daryl tell one of his legendary stories of how a request that was made for him created a holiday tradition for thousands of young people. He tells the story modestly, and I'll let him tell it. But what Daryl doesn't talk about is why he called the 4th time, the 5th time, and the 10th time to make this happen. And he did that because he believes that one day in the life of a young person can make such an impact because of the one day that made an impact for him. You've heard Daryl's incredible story of how there was a good friend of his who was murdered when he was a young person. And he was about to retaliate that murder, and instead was interrupted by a youth worker who said, come to the center and let's talk about this. And from that point became his whole commitment to youth services. Daryl believes and knows that one day can make such a difference. And so he has dedicated his whole lifetime to creating a series of one days that make an impact for young people. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this special day for you. And I want to encourage you to continue to do this incredible work that you do in the lives of young people. Thank you so much, Daryl. Show the tape.
My brain doesn't turn off, unfortunately. I can go home and go to a restaurant and get takeout and tell the owner of the restaurant about our culinary program and how to reconnect the dots, and maybe he could be a guest judge for one of our programs. It never turns off. Our agency serves I would say everyone in some capacity. We serve everyday New Yorkers. We do amazing things. We work with hundreds of nonprofits throughout the city. Many folks know us from 2 of our highlighted programs, whether it's SYP or Some Youth Funded Program, which was my first job, or whether it's our Beacon program, which started back in 1991. I have oversight of our youth services portfolio, which includes our Beacon program, our Compass program, the Cornerstone program, our Runaway Homeless Youth program, and our Strategic Partnerships division. We were at one of our sites during the first holiday session where I was with the current commissioner, Bill Chong, who back then was the deputy commissioner. Bill asked the site director, hey, what could UYC do to better support you during this holiday reset experience? And the site director said, well, there's this new ice skating rink opened in Bryant Park. Bill looked at me, I'm like, I'll take care of it. To get in contact with the CEO who was coordinating the ice skating rink, I ended up speaking to a concession stand worker who gave me the phone number of his girlfriend at the time. And only the first 5 for me to get in contact with him. Well, eventually, the first session we had, they had over 1,000 people. It was a DYCD and OST skate day at Bryant Park, and that was sort of the beginnings of strategic partnership. This film really saved my life. My story is very similar to many stories out there for our young people. It was through a nonprofit, Phipps Neighborhood, and I grew up in one of their developments. Lambert houses. And one of my friends was killed, LaShawn Chapman. And at that point, we were going to take matters into our own hands, and we were going to retaliate. By the grace of God, we were stopped by the center director at the time, Ms. Alice James Jenkins. And she said, hey, can you guys all come in and talk? That evening, we met with Youth Force, and we created a youth group called Young Hope. And I was the founding president of the youth group. So that, at that point, I kind of informally dedicated myself to service. Someone trusted me, and someone gave me the opportunity to figure out what I want to be and who I want to be. It's absolutely knowing that some of the things that saved my life is happening across the city, and we're a part of that. I'm a part of that.
I've been crying like the top of my napkin. No, all the stories, all the anecdotes. I don't do it for recognition. I do it because I think it's the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do for all of those folks who were part of my life growing up. Every time I walk into DYCD, I know it's the right thing to do for the staff here. Every time I commute, every civil servant across the city of New York, I know they wake up with a passion to make sure that the right thing is done. I do want to thank the Fund for the City of New York for recognizing city employees. The Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, thank you for supporting this. It's amazing, and I actually have talking points because I knew this was going to happen. Because I'll be talking forever. Oh my goodness. So the funny thing is, I used to go to the Fund for the City, as Arva mentioned, for trainings and meetings, and I was a counselor. At one point, you guys did a team retreat, which I thought was amazing. I met some really wonderful folks there, Eddie. I remember every time you get to the Fund for the City, there's a receptionist, and you have to announce yourself, and they contact someone from YDI. But while you're there for a couple of minutes. And I'm staring at the pictures of the previous Sloan Public Service recipients. And I'm thinking to myself, wouldn't that be nice? So it's truly remarkable that from that point, so long ago, 98, 97, 99, looking at those pictures up there, I remember seeing the firefighters, the police officers, and other folks in service, in city service. So it's remarkable that you guys have been doing this since 1973 for city workers who, as mentioned earlier, most commonly get overlooked. Like our jobs, it's not the good things we do, it's the one bad thing, or the one mishap where we don't get punished for it, unfortunately. And while there are only 6 of us being highlighted, these awards are a testimony to all the work done by every city worker throughout New York City. Yeah. Public service and those who dedicate their lives to public service bring hope, they bring inspiration, and for a 14-year-old boy in the Bronx, they brought a sense of belief that my future wasn't limited by my current circumstances, and that it only took a moment to decide and realize that I didn't know what my future held, but I did know that I wanted to become and do something positive and give back to my community. My mother died when I was 12, and I didn't know my father. I met him when I was 26, I still don't know him. I could do a whole monologue on meeting my father one day, and he took me to lunch, and that whole conversation was weird, and now he doesn't answer the call. I'm fine. I have Liz, my daughter, who I can be everything he wasn't. And still not be upset with him, because there must have been some circumstances that he has been going through. So I'm fine.
Maybe I'm not. So back then, you know, my mother died when I was 12. I'm out there in the streets of the Bronx. My childhood friend Jermaine Roberts was actually stabbed by Fordham Road over a weird conversation over a Walkman that just went the wrong way. Less than a year later, my friend LaShawn Chapman was shot and killed. And that was it. We were gonna take action into our own hands. We were gonna retaliate. I grew up in Lambert houses. It wouldn't be hard to get a gun. And Sean got shot, so it wouldn't be hard to pull the trigger. That evening, by the grace of God, we were literally walking through Lambert, and Ms. James saw us. And I had a connection to the community center there, the computer lab there, which is a different story, but also sparks into my interest in technology. But Ms. James grabbed us and said, look, let's talk. And we created a youth group called Young Hope. And I was the founding president of that youth group. Our mantra was turning our negative energy into positive action. We took a stance against violence. We activated positive activities and service events throughout the West Farms, East Tremont, and Lambert houses community. We were supported by adult mentors that care for us who we didn't want to disappoint. And I was the founding president. Back then, and he's not in town right now, but Dennis Carter, as many of you know, he was a counselor back then on a street outreach grant that Phipps had for the neighborhood. And he was one of the adult mentors that I did not want to disappoint. Ms. James, there's so many folks from back then. And again, I didn't know it at the time, but that was my start in public service. I've been here at DYCD for over 20 years. Many people don't know that I actually started as a consultant working on a project to convert our internal contracting system to allow beacon providers to into their work scopes and activities, and that's what Eddie was talking about. And you know what? Thanks to Jessica Mates and Dennis Carter for that opportunity that got my foot in the door. And Jessica, you became someone that I wouldn't want to disappoint at the time. I'm trying to just like keep it together, right? I remember meeting folks at DYCD, realizing that they all funded the Beacon program. Like every Beacon program in the city, DYCD funded. That was amazing to me. I learned about the work that they did across the city, and I thought to myself, dream job? But that's where I want to go, right? You know, when my mother, before my mother passed from breast cancer, I wanted to be an astronaut. And I used to be a scientist, and my sisters had these college textbooks in the house and SAT prep books that I would read and study. So I was a little kid going down to Florida to visit other family, and they're like, oh my God, he's so smart, he could read. He could answer questions, and he's like intuitive. Yeah. Oh, but my mother passed, and that dream just evaporated with the circumstances that I was in. So after the consulting gig was up, I lucked out, and Jimmy Soledad McIntosh and Christopher Darwin offered me a job as a coordinator with the Beacon unit. And I started at DYCD September 24th, 2001. And I treated DYCD like I believe the work that we do contributes to saving lives, because that was my story. If it meant I wore many hats, then I wore many hats. No assignment was too small or too big for me to commit myself and my time to. I've always had that belief that we are contributing and supporting the work being done by our nonprofit partners, and that they save lives, they change minds, they nurture communities. So in my work, I've always tried to bring innovation and a different type of support. Whether it's on mentoring programs or strategic partnerships, the first question that needed to be answered was, how does this help our nonprofit community, and how does this help our young people and adults who benefit from our programs? And I couldn't do that. I mean, there's things that I activated on and was passionate about and running out and around the city, but I couldn't do that without a team, without a really good team here at DYCD. And not just my team that I help cultivate, but the entire agency has a passion and commitment to the work that we do. That's different than any, I love every agency, disclaimer. But DYCD has a different type of commitment, in my opinion, to our young people, our families, our communities, that goes beyond. And if we bring our passion to the work every single day. So, like, my team was instrumental in me thriving throughout the years. There are no instant rewards for the work that we do. Many times the benefits are long-term. We might find out that a Division I female basketball player started playing basketball in our middle school girls league. Or that a young man that was in our 5th grade robotics competition attributes his success in high school and his attending college to his involvement in the robotics program. Or that a young man in our middle school mentoring program who was also a participant at the Washington Heights Beacon grew up to become a police officer because he had that calling. He had the same calling that led him back to his high school to speak to students about their futures and how they show up in their communities. He had that same calling that all of us have that drives our passion for public service. Unfortunately, that young man, Officer Jason Rivera, was taken from us too soon. But he and others remain as examples of the work that we do and the positive outcomes that it brings, and as an inspiration for all of us as we move forward. I think every city employee, every public servant, and everyone who dedicates themselves to helping others, it is from you that hope, inspiration, and belief that saved the 14-year-old boy from the Bronx and so many others remain. There is no greater job than that of a public servant, and no greater city than New York City to do that service in. I look forward to working with all of my colleagues for many years to come, and especially my colleagues at DYCD. I love you all.
If you're done with some aspects of your award, you can put some news out.
You can't cash that.
Arva, can I have you come up?
And then we have the 2 portraits that are for yours to keep.
Cash it quick.
Cash it. You know, when you guys started this, there was no social media.
Now it's hashtag super civil servants.
We would love to have our Deputy Mayor, Commissioner Chong, as well as our Chair of the Board, Michael Arad. Please join us.
Drinks on Daryl.
Build on that side. Right there, perfect. Good, that's great. That's a good team right there.
That's right. Take care.
Thank you, Wanda. Take one of those right there.
Thank you everyone so much. We're off to HPD, so thank you for being such great hosts.
Get to keep this picture?
Yes, we do.